Yeah, he was more of a slide than I saw.
Method track says it was it didn't work basically.
I'll just call you Kevin.
That's what they're using for it. It's a very effective drug. It takes 8 mAh once a week, all 8 of them once. And it loads your immune system. It just shuts it down.
Are we on?
This shuts it down. So I've got no immune off. I said, the person's going to hold. So I said, can I get a flu shot? And they said, as long as you don't use the one thing, checking, that's a lot. Big tape. Just we'll get you.
I'll just sit right here.
My bad.
All right, it's 6 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. And first item up is approval of the minutes. Do you have any corrections or additions to the minutes I'd like to make? Anyone like to make a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Yeah, our first order of new business is 312 South Fort Thomas Avenue, signage application. Barry Petracco is property owner and Tami Root as applicants.
Do I go up? Hello.
And Barry, just for the record, you're recusing yourself.
Yes.
Hi,
Tami, would you please state your name and address for the record, please?
Tami Root. Do you want my business address or personal? 1312 South Fort Thomas Avenue, Fort Thomas, Kentucky. 41775.
Thank you. Okay, if you'd like to present your plan.
There's my sign, and we are going to put it in this color, and everybody thinks it's cute. It's like a navy. You can pass this around if you want to see it. It's vinyl. And it's already kind of the color that's on the papers that you have in front of you. And we're going to, it's okay with you guys, paint the wooden part the same color that we have painted the front of the house, which is like a light gray, and the actual metal box that the sign goes in is going to be like a matte, like granite gray, just like really medium, like it's not dark, it's not light. And then the sign is white and the lettering is in that color, and it says exactly what it says here.
Any questions or comments?
This is what we expect from the sign, is an address and who's there.
I guess one question would be, if tenants change, what is your
I would be happy to update that sign. I already kind of want to update it anyway, but somebody moves out that's on this, then we'll just get a new one.
Okay, I mean, it's just because that's what I mean, wondering whether
Yeah, no, we'll just.
like Band-Aid the one name change, it's not really designed to be interchangeable.
Yeah, no, because it's just vinyl on there. You can just peel it off and stick somebody else on there, or we can have a grander plan at some day. Bigger, better, faster, stronger.
One question I had is, right now, 1312 almost reads like a tenant. Sort of is treated the same as the tenant. And I didn't know if there was any interest in differentiating the address from the tenant names.
Well, we tried to do that, but with how long the sign is, you couldn't really put it at the bottom, because then everything would be super small. And as it is, it's going to be hard to read, like when somebody's looking. And kind of what I thought was, when people are driving looking to come get their facial, all they want to see is the 1312. They're like, oh, that's the address, and then the name, because it's Studio Root, and the GSP Law, he never has anybody come to it, and Heart and Soul is a dance company, and all they really need to see is that, and that was like a concern, but we're limited with the space. And we even talked about like trying to do something like bigger and like remove like the box off of it, but then that's a whole rigmarole of what the sign is going to be. And is it ideal? No, probably not. But the names are a little bit bigger and this is a little bit smaller, so we thought that it would work cute enough.
I think the size is good because it's very legible. It's
Yeah.
really nice. I was just wondering if you could reverse, create a box out of the blue and then have the letters be white
What do
for
you
the
think about that?
address.
Here's my man. I brought some muscle tonight. He's making the sign for me.
We know that guy.
So what do you think about that with reversing
I
it
think
like that?
it would deteriorate from the sign, it would take away from the looks to see that box sitting out there. If you wanted, the only
It's just
thing.
a color.
Do what?
It's just a color.
Well, it's gonna be you want to change the color, you didn't want to put a,
Make the box blue with the letters white so the address stands out different than.
well, it just, effective, it's not conducive to this type of signage. I mean, it's just gonna be a dark gray box, like that color there that you see. That we see on the side. The other alternative would be to take that off of there altogether and have the house number put up, or the address number put up on the building. And
Which
take
is
that
how
off the
current
sign altogether.
No, I think it's good to have the address there. They just kind of blended in with the tenant thing.
And it does, you're right, it does. And of course, I had bigger, bolder ideas about it, but then that's bigger, bolder cost. It's a whole big different thing of trying to deal with the existing sign. I just wanted to like scoot in real quietly and do it. And if it ends up being something that, people don't understand and can't find, it's a very easy refix. I mean, it's not like it's a super permanent, like etched in marble. It's just plastic with vinyl on it. Because even if like that is something, then there always could be something that was put around it, or we even tried putting the address underneath of it, but anything that you put smaller than what's on here, you're not going to be able to see. Like it's already sets back pretty far from the road. What do you think, Barb?
So my only suggestion is when I look at the sign, we read left to right, and the way that you have the businesses into two lines, I personally would be able to read it better. I think if it was Studio Root, one line, like have your businesses underneath each other with the addresses on your left. So it would be Studio Root, GSP Law, and then Heart and Soul.
And just have them be out longer like that?
Instead of having them broke like that, because to me it's just not a natural way of reading. Does that make sense?
I do see what you're saying with that, but I also think that would kind of read like text. I mean, if people are looking, the only people that will be looking is for Studio Root and Heart and Soul. And both people that have clients that come to them, they already kind of know what they're doing. We already have websites. They already know what our address is. What do you think about that?
I just think too that having the businesses on one line, like it would actually help set the number, the street number, away from the other businesses. Because right now when you're looking at it, that 1312 stands out. However, it just sort of blends in with everything. So if you have the street number, and then out to the right you have 3 lines which are the businesses, it might pop out even more. What do you think, Jim?
We've done this, when we put this together, we took the size of the letters that we're able to put on the sign and took it towards our visual chart that was a distance from the center line of the street to the sign to give us the effective reading distance of a 20/20 vision. So the effective footage of this is 135 feet to read that if you're 20/20. Anything that would get smaller than that, if you put it on a straight line, that Studio Root's going to get smaller. So I think that's what you're saying, Studio Root?
Yeah.
Even if you move that up, and so you're occupying more of the white space for the business names. So if you move Studio Root up, and then you You see what I'm saying?
Well, kind of look like my old sign.
Yeah, sort of like
Well,
that.
they're stacked on top.
I personally, if that's gonna be something that you guys think is an issue, I would rather just take the 1312 off of it and just leave it exactly like it is on the building.
I don't know, I
Stuff on
like
the
the
building.
1312, I think that's a modern way of getting your address out there, but that was just my suggestion. I'm not saying this doesn't look good, I'm
Right.
just saying that when I'm driving by, it's not my natural way of reading, like studio then room. I would read all the way across,
Right, I see what you're saying.
Piece of vinyl with the orange.
but that's just my opinion.
I don't know if this is help any or not, but a lot of this is based on signs that are done around the area. Newport, Bellevue, Dayton, those particular things that we have a lot of conflict with, and this is the way a lot of these signs are going now. It's the more, I don't know
Maybe I'm just
what the style is now, but if you go through Blue Ash and places like that, you see long signs like this that have multiple addresses and multiple names on them. This is where it's all going. So,
Oh, okay.
and that's basically where we took it from, to make it simple, and it's very legible, and it's not busy. It's not a busy sign.
No, it's not busy, it's just, it all runs together. Well, you don't want to get too much more. You don't want to make it busy here.
Stick with verses.
Reverses, blue background with white letter. Mr. Mann said that maybe a little dot or something, so
Yeah,
I'm just
so
saying.
the two line. I mean, like, you don't have a problem with that reverse, it's just a
Blue
little
background,
bit.
white letter.
So most people are looking for the address, for the number, not the business.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
What everybody's just documenting what I'm hearing, what she's talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that would be a good combination.
Why don't you hold that?
Not listening to sketches.
I love it.
So that's the consensus of what I've heard so far, right? That like the blue around the numbers,
Like blue vinyl with the letters cut
Stacked.
out, numbers cut out.
stacked,
Would you like to come
naming,
up here, counsel?
and that the thought here is that there's a requirement for legibility that you say that this size is what it is, and it really needs to be that to be legible from the right distance.
No, it doesn't have to be that size.
Well, I mean, I'm saying I understood that there's a good reason for it. You can read from a distance, and
What
that's
is
very
that letter
important.
height? There's,
Oh, I don't
no
know,
dimension.
just looking at it, I think it's 6 inches or so. I'd have to go back and look at the computer and see what we put in there. It's 138 feet is where we came up with, I think it was 6 to 7 feet.
I don't think scale is the issue.
Yeah. So, anyway.
Well, if you stack them by 3, then you have to reduce the height of the letter.
Oh, you want to stack like this?
Yeah, that's fine, yeah. They want this to be blue and this to be white and then this to be.
Same color.
Yeah, I can see this, I can see this.
That's what I was.
I just think that's hard to read, and that's not what you're seeing, typical of what you see around the city and what you see in, cities around us. I'll be honest with you, we take a lot of this stuff out of Blue Ash. Blue Ash
Oh,
has
no,
got
I
the,
mean, I know, and you
you know,
get my side.
we
so-
cheat, we use other cities to say, yeah, we want to look like them, and this particular sign and what we're working with out there, I told Tami, I said, don't tear that down, there's nothing wrong with that can, let's just put a new piece of
I want
flux in
it
it.
to completely resign.
No, we agree.
No, I
Just
agree
put a,
with Jay, I mean,
But I think what you've done, I'm totally against that.
It's not just
I just think that's really hard to read.
drawing up what I'm
Thought
hearing.
that was thrown out.
Hmm?
There was another thought that was thrown out.
We allowed to get there, we allowed to do it.
we allow them to-
Of course.
You just can't go past it. Yeah, sign really grasp
Don't
it.
jump up. Reverse.
Yeah.
Blue, white letter, and just like your daughter, something to like.
Good break.
It's just kind of like,
Right, just a
we
little
have this
line.
existing sign we express.
And that works. That works.
And it reads,
It breaks
So
it up.
what about instead of the dots, if we're gonna have a line, we put a dot just like lines, or like we're all gonna like crossed in?
I don't like that.
Do something like
I think
that.
part of it is distinguishing the address from the, so that's number
We
one.
visually blocking
Good suggestion.
I like the idea of little lines as opposed to dots. Seem more people. We don't want to be like that.
I don't know. They have dots out there.
I use lines.
All right. So we can either approve one of these alternatives, or you guys can go back to the drawing board and come back.
Well,
to
we will have to consult the guy that designed it.
No, we don't.
Jason, I don't want to
He's
come
ready to make a decision now.
Well, he's my graphic designer, so, you know, if it means that we have to make a change to get this sign up so that Tami can get on with her business, let's approve something tonight instead of going back to the drawing board and waiting another month to come up here and approve it again. I don't see any problem with reversing out the address. That can be done. It's not a big deal. And putting a dot or line between them to designate different businesses. I can understand that. And I think that's
Okay.
something we do, and there's no difference. We can work with that.
Okay.
So
Any further questions or comments? Do we have anyone like to make a motion?
I'll try. Motion to approve with the following changes. So the address will be blue square, white letters, so reversed from the rest.
And we're using that, we're using that color.
Yes.
That's,
Yeah, same as the rest. You're just reversing it. And then there will be a line or a dot placed between the tenant names to distinguish them from each other. There's no lighting. Right?
No lighting.
And the colors are approved as submitted.
Which is the light gray on the vertical
Yes.
number is light gray to match the building. And then medium charcoal gray for the signature.
Match the mailbox.
Is that what it is?
Very important.
What was the medium gray?
The color to match the mailbox.
I believe it's called
Medium
graphite.
gray.
Graphite.
It's a matte.
Okay.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Yay, thank you.
Okay,
Now I leave you all to the real business.
on to old business. Our first item is 654 Highland Avenue, revised exterior building alterations. Applicant is Café. Would you please state your name and address?
I'm Code President for Thomas Enterprises. Their business address is 11 South Fort Thomas Avenue. So this basically is asking for a revision to the roof structure. You all approved the deck several months ago, I guess it's been now. So at that time, the roof structure was just going to be exposed rafters or beams and then lattice. And now, after we discussed it more, Brenda couldn't be here, by the way, the Cobblestone, so we thought to make it more functional, we would put a low profile, low elevation, black metal red roof on the top. And as you can see in this, you did get a profile of it. So anyway, that's that black metal would also match the sign that we're going to put new wrapping on, which will be black, as you all also suggested at the last meeting. So basically, that's all we're asking for.
So is the metal material standing seam,
Yeah.
not a corrugation? Okay.
It's a nice improvement.
Right, the bird droppings, feather,
Right.
all kinds of things. So
Well,
it
that's nice.
just seemed to make more sense when we start talking about it.
How is it, how does the drainage work?
Drain off, there's a grass area you had in your conditions that we put some grasses there in front of the deck, which we'll do in the spring. So that will have natural runoff onto the grasses
So
or
it
flowers.
just sheets off.
Yeah. Take a look better, so. That's all we're asking, change, we're keeping your recommended changes on the exterior of the structure there.
Any
There gonna be
questions?
anything on the edge of the decking? I mean, how does it stop on the sides and so on? It's gonna be going across the supports and so on, and so then now you got the steel on top of that.
Yeah, I imagine not put some type of,
Put like a wood edging on it or something, just to
something that finish it off, so.
finish it off.
It won't be a rough one, yeah.
Well, yeah, on the drip edge, you may not have a choice. Maybe you'll put something underneath it, but you really can't put anything above, because it would block your runoff. But it might be nice to have something that's wood in there, just it's not just a thin metal coming out and dying in
Right.
space. Okay.
That's fine.
Who did the sketch?
Jerry. He is a good, see, all done for doing this type of thing.
Any other questions or comments?
Oh, sure, I can since I really, that's fine.
Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I'd like the motion that we'll accept the plan as provided with the addition of a wood trim at the edge of the deck, or the metal sheet.
All exposed edges.
Yeah, it gets a little tricky, like I say, on the drip edge. It'd be nice to have it all the way up so it was basically boxed in, but you can't on the drip edge. It's kind of
So it'll be on
tricky.
three edges. just
Three
trying to
edges,
clarify
and then
the
maybe you could get something a little bit underneath there. Plus, it'd give it a little more weight to the front edge.
Julie, did you get that? There would be wood trim on three edges, and then on the drip side, the wood trim would be beneath the material.
And give it a little more weight to it. Just
What are you thinking?
it wouldn't have to be that big. Just a 2x2 would be, you know.
Do you have ideas, or
Do what?
do you have any ideas about that? The trim?
If you could put a wood trim on it and cover that with the same color aluminum as the roof. That would protect the wood and make it all blend in.
Okay. We put a synthetic material on there. Make it work.
They probably have a trim piece for that,
They may have it,
for the sides.
so it's not just a thin
Right, an edge
edge
sticking out there.
which would look kind of funny there, but it has some weight to it.
Right.
So the turn.
Okay.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Okay, our second second item under old business is 3, 15, 19, and 25 North Fort Thomas Avenue and 9 Highland Avenue, Greiwe Development, as the applicant. Would you like to come forward, please, and state your name and address for the record?
Thank you, Rick Greiwe Development, 9355 Holly Hill, Cincinnati. Tonight we have Sari Lekkonen from MA Architecture presenting, along with Mark Kepke from Mark Kepke Design. We're happy to be back to give you some updates on the project that you requested, and also some new material that's required for your review. We're going to be briefly reviewing the site plan which you received, some minor adjustments and improvements. We'll run through the floor plans again, pointing out any changes. The elevations now are very detailed with all the correct colors, and also we have actual materials here for you to touch and look at tonight. And we also have 3D building model. We'll fly you around and see the whole project coming together. And Martin's going to present the details on the landscape plan and all the issues we're addressing with that plan. And we'll be talking about signage some more. And we're happy about how we've been able to come up with a system that will be able to promote the individual merchants, but also keep the integrity of the building. And also the branding for the project. Kohler Design has put together a logo and a branding for the project. We'll show you that at the end. But the name is not Fort Thomas Mixed Use anymore. We're going to refer to it as One Highland. The post office says the address is available. It's not been used. And we think in a minute later on I'll show you how that evolved into the name after looking at about 50 different candidates. So we're excited to get started. So with that, here's Sorry.
Good evening. My name is Sari Lenkinen. I'm with MA Architects, and we've been here a couple of times before. Right now, we are at the design development phase of our design, or we just completed that. And so this latest submission that we provided to you are our select sheets of that design development set. And that's where the architecture and engineering is right now. We have, Brick has engaged Martin Kepke to do landscape design. So the landscape plan that you will see is very preliminary. It's the first stab at it. And also the signage has been done in our office. Chelsea Curry has been working on the signage guidelines. And that also is a preliminary design. So it's really a set of guidelines that we're intending to really then take further to signage documents for the last submission, which we plan to be here at the 50% CD phase of our design. That would be somewhat final design then for you to review. And I will kind of go through the project a little bit here. Decides to work there. So we included the cover sheet in the submission. But as a site plan, I've placed here Martin's landscaping plan, and just a little refresher, even though you have seen the project a couple times. This has retail on the first floor. Zoom out here. So we have retail at the north end of our building and kind of right here at the Highland and Fort Thomas. So Fort Thomas Avenue here, north is to the right, Highland Avenue here, Woodland Place over here. And then our building has a little walk passage through that's been there, and like basically the design is like we presented before. I'm just refreshing your memory. Then there are 2 units here at the end where the grade slopes down on Highland Avenue towards Woodland Place. Commercial parking in the rear. And I think that's kind of it for just the architectural orientation. The garage plan, very similar to what we've seen before. So our garage doors are right here at the surface, at the wall of the building on Woodland Place. On the first floor, you can see here the passage through the building. So this is the main entrance to the building. We've articulated this entrance elevation a little bit different from the other gables, and so there's a little kind of a vestibule that you enter, and there's more glass and storefront at this Fort Thomas end of the walk, and then towards the back it gets more solid. Obviously the businesses will have their back of house type stuff, and we don't really want to be looking at it. And then there's the rear entrance from the parking garage, the parking lot from the commercial parking lot, and also the entrance to the residential lobby here, and entrance to the elevator and the steps and to these 2 units, and that's the way that residents enter by foot. We've shown kind of in concept these plans for the commercial spaces. So there's a little restroom and a kind of a mechanical / crash kind of whatever utility room. They are only a suggestion at this point. That's how we're going to design the building, to have kind of penetrations for plumbing. And there's this one commercial space here that doesn't have connection directly to the back, and it connects to the tower element. It's a kind of a covered area here. And we have this public walk here that we've talked about before. That's like partially trellised, partially covered by the building. Kind of creates the second pedestrian connection here. On the second floor, you can see the residential units, and they stack with the 3rd floor, except that this end of the building on Highland end is only 2 stories tall instead of 3. that's all kind of done. We've seen this before. We've created a roof plan also to illustrate this a little more. And as mentioned before, we have this parapet condition here facing Fort Thomas Avenue, so our mechanical units are shielded. And then, oops, it's a little slow, so it kind of popped ahead. So here we are, our building elevations. The elevation here at the bottom is the Fort Thomas elevation. And we can look at this in 3D a little more, but the storefront that you see here is set back at the plane of this darker brick wall here, and this is the fiber cement wall behind the balconies. And then there's a walk. These gables here project out, and there's a walk underneath the trellis and underneath the gables, underneath the balconies, and that's kind of how this all works. And then we have this corner tower. We worked a little bit on that one blind panel. There's a wall on that unit. This is a big living room of the largest unit of the building, and there's a fireplace on this wall, and we've added transom windows here and added some trim detailing that is reminiscent of these other hardy and millwork features. We revised it from last time where it was more like just board and batten that mimicked the window configuration, and that seems to be working. The other thing that we did, here's the Highland Avenue elevation, so you can see how the grade changes towards Woodland Place. Here's the Woodland Place elevation. Here are the two garage doors, and we have some windows into the garage just so that we give some interest to the elevation. The materials here are what we have on the table. We can look at them in a little bit in more detail, but there's that concrete stone, so it's an ashlar pattern, and it's actually, we're proposing an Ariscraft product, and a slight bit darker than the product that I know is being used at Tower Park. And then there's the red brick, and then there's a darker red brick, kind of a burgundy. I'm thinking that's a nice rich kind of finish. And then the cast stone lintels are something that is kind of in concept as if it were the ashlar stone but tailored. So it's a cast stone that's darker gray also. And then there's this dark green area. We have picked the paint color for our fiber cement. We have Anderson wood windows that are aluminum clad, and we have a kind of a bronzy kind of a finish for that, and a matching storefront finish. And we have a sample of the roof shingles that have a kind of a nice range of colors in them on the kind of a greens and browns kind of end of things. The other side of the building, this is the back. There's a little bit of change that has happened here because we've talked to the retail consultants here, and they were adamant that we needed to enclose the wall a little more. We needed security, solid doors. It's really more like a back of house. Originally, we were looking at it as a kind of a through building with two storefronts both ends, but that just does not sound like it's going to work for the retail operators. And so instead of making a completely blind wall, we added the transom windows in there. And still in the back, we can see this in the model in a little bit, but there's still this walk underneath the balcony and the gable. Here's an open area where there's nothing above your walk here, and then we have another covered walk here towards the other back entrance to the building that goes through it.
What is the red material?
It's a red brick. It's that darker brick.
Okay.
So it's the same materials that we have otherwise. And then another little change that we did, you all had a comment on this north elevation, and we connected the kitchen windows with a hardy panel, kind of a vertical element that emphasized the asymmetry of that elevation, and maybe that does the trick. I feel like it was an improvement. We have little partial elevations because we're developing the design, so it just shows every side of the building. There is now a little trash enclosure at the northwest corner of the property. And at this point, we're thinking that this would be a fiber cement clad enclosure, 7 feet tall. We would use trim detailing that is similar to what we do in these bays and everything. So it's not without three-dimensional kind of articulation to it, but also we don't want to draw attention to it. So in the dark green, I think it would go away a little more than if you had something brighter in there. Then in the drawings that we had some 3D views of the building. which kind of illustrates how it sits in the landscape. You can see on the top right, the corner of Woodland Place and Highland Avenue, where the grade drops the most, and the garage entrance is behind the end of the gable there. The aerial shows that the back side of the building is really articulated, similar to the front. There's our corner tower at Highland and Fort Thomas at the lower left, and the building entrance. There's a little higher area there where you enter the building. So we raised this bay here. There's a higher ceiling in this zone here. And the thinking right now, we have these cedar trellises here. The idea is that it's solid cedar for the trellis, and then maybe there's a tongue and groove cedar ceiling at these above the entrance here at front and back, and then inside the walkway also tongue and groove cedar ceiling into it with little beams that interrupt it. So kind of taking that sort of materiality into the inside of the building. Drawings that also is starting to include some details, and we have included these wall sections for your review. It shows how these gables are articulated, how the bays project out. There's always a living room that has that dormer bay and the windows. There's a little vent detail and a little cornice, like a little bracket at the top of the gable to give it a little character. There's a couple of different conditions. This is the main entrance to the building from Fort Thomas Avenue. So we are looking at the piers on both sides of the entrance here to be cast stone and more tailored, and then the ashlar pattern for the rest of the masonry. Here is a gable example when you are on Highland Avenue, kind of going down towards Fort Thomas. So there's a little storefront area there that's just a field in the stone, but doesn't connect to a walk. Tower. We have those bench elements at the base, so they give you a kind of a place to sit, even if it's like winter and the furniture is put away and happens to be a sunny day, so that will work. Cornice detail is kind of reminiscent a little bit of that theater building across the intersection. Looked at that a little bit to create similar dimensioning and all that, but obviously ours is going to be a different color at much higher elevation. Let me see, I think I will show you now the model before we let Martin talk. So if you can kind of request what you want to see, but I can kind of spin around and just show you where we are. So here's our corner tower. There's our cedar trellis. Sorry, everything's flashing around. We have that building entrance there where the bay is a little bit raised. So
You've got these steps here. Is there
yes.
a grade change?
Yes, there is. Actually, that's something that we discovered in this design phase when we had our civil engineer involved. So we are at grade at the tower and at the main building entrance. And we are at grade where that drive is to the parking, or at this park area here.
Mm-hmm.
But then Fort Thomas Avenue dips down, like it's about a foot and 3 inches, something like that. So it's not level, so we have to provide those steps and that sort of access there. But we're still providing the accessible entrance from the plaza area and at the building
You're
entrance.
stepping up from the sidewalk to the,
We're stepping from sidewalk is below, and our
Right.
building is above, yeah. So I thought that was actually okay, like it could have been worse. I feel like that was a fortunate direction of the grading to go.
and the steps will be,
Well, we're kind of working on the pavement material and all that, so it will tie into that. We're looking at possibly brick pavers or some other larger format paver in that private zone that would connect to the brick that is your standard on the sidewalks. We are also looking at stained concrete as kind of maybe stripes of that in that area, so that might be something that comes to play. But the steps would be of something that ties between these things. So hopefully something a little nicer than just a concrete step, so.
So more detail to come on that.
Pardon?
More detail to come on that.
Yeah, exactly, so that would be in the last packet, but yes, we've just discovered that's happening. And one thing that we've been kind of considering too is what to do with those handrails, but I think we're gonna keep them pretty minimal, just kind of thin metal, no need to kind of call attention to that. And just kind of,
Does the grade change?
yeah, that's not actually, it doesn't read in the model correctly, so I think the model is only, I think that's something that's, what happens here really is that the grade is flush here, and then the sidewalk dips down, like just ever so slightly, like a foot here, and then it goes back up further.
Hopefully your landscape architect can work out the grades and the steps as opposed to the civil.
Yeah, we're doing a big coordination here.
In that area.
Yeah, and Martin and I have been like already discussing this very much, and we're coordinating with our civil, and he's drawing what we need, so that should, like, next time, this has kind of been a fast DD phase. I think we had 6 weeks for it, and we're gonna kind of finesse the detailing and make sure that our steps work. I will spin you around to the other side. There you go. We're looking at the building from the north. Slightly above. There's our parapet to cover our mechanical units. Yeah, I wanted to get an overview, but I'll go to the street.
Out there. It's like your one elevation, and this house that drops on right here. And this on the one elevation looks like it's getting almost to the height where you might need
It's gonna have a guardrail. Yeah, it will have a guardrail.
well, I would think it would be nicer if we would go ahead and do something with a box or a wall there, bring your landscaping up and stuff, because otherwise it's gonna be the only opening with a guardrail on it.
So keep the grade up, Pat, is what you're saying, to here, and have a small wall.
Well, have a small wall or whatever that can come around, or do something, and maybe even if the grade has to slow back out to get towards the sidewalk, it would be nicer to keep all of these open instead of having just one at the end with a guardrail.
It kind of like connects to the balconies above if you put the guardrail there. I'm also thinking there's a very small area. I think this is max 5 feet. It's less than that, the setback there. So to build this box
So
sounds a little complicated.
The other option is to go ahead and bring it all the way over to here.
Yes,
And so it would-
that's the
There's
intent.
more with those.
Yeah, Chris, that's exactly what I was thinking. That would go all the way across. And then I think we may need something here, but this we can probably deal with on grading and everything. But it would be nice if it kind of connected to the balconies above.
Okay. When you do that, that'll look funny.
Yeah, we'll show that next time.
But you will be able to get here at grade.
I'm hoping so. I know on the other side you can. And we're going to try and work our magic there to get that to work.
From a past retail person, that's important.
Yeah.
Well, again,
And you can do a step if you have
First of
to.
all,
what if you have to do a
dead
small
end.
wall in the landscape?
Right, right,
To look out those
Right.
grades, it's worth it.
yeah.
Or steps. And that far in.
There's very little room for steps, so, but we can look at that.
We give a 5 foot, well, that's true, I'm not sure about that height.
Can you go down to street level and look at the main entry off of Fort Thomas Avenue?
Which way?
That's straight on to that entry, yeah.
So we'll have little like signage medallions here and here. We had like marks on our elevations. There's some notes about connecting to our signage plan, but we have a whole separate package for the signage guidelines.
And then go to the next entry that's not raised up. Yeah. Just something about the overlap of the trim from the windows
Yeah.
above, overlapping that.
The lintel?
Lintel is a little funny.
Okay.
Well, I think if you lower the view to street level, it's.
That's what I'm trying to understand, right?
Yeah, I think if you tilt it up there, yeah, this is the view that you're seeing. No one's 20 feet tall.
No, that's true.
You have to see the signage package next to see
Yeah.
how that's going.
Yeah. Actually, I kind of like the way the signage ends up working because we have like a whole different world that's inside the walk here with the blade signs and everything, and then you have this kind of more public kind of thing that happens at the outside of the walk, hanging on these tops of the openings. Sorry, this little stuff is pretty irritating.
That's a great tool.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Anything anybody wants to see there, or do we move on to the landscaping? Or, actually, I want to show the materials first.
Can you walk those around for you?
Let's see.
Or we can come out.
Yeah, if you don't mind, you want to take a walk? Little stretch. Seventh inning.
It's like Skyping, right?
That's right.
So I'm like a big fan of this burgundy brick here. And this is kind of like the lighter brick, that's the gables that project out. And then everything else is the darker brick. Here's our ashlar pattern stone. It's a kind of man-made material. And then windows, these are the Anderson aluminum clad wood windows. Here's a Conair storefront that's a pretty close match. They will never touch, but that will work. We have a cast stone here that kind of looks as if it were this stuff tailored. And so this happens in different locations. And here's our party. Light here is not the best. Spring looks kind of gray. But
That's the paint color.
that's the paint color we picked right now.
And the gutters.
They're going to be in this world of kind of a bronze. And that roof is actually something we've used before, even with all kinds of different color schemes. And I feel like it's always a kind of a nice, there's a good kind of green and brown mix in there that seems to work well. And it has a little bit of dimension, so it's not totally flat and boring.
Where's the darker brick?
This is the building, anywhere there that you see the darker brick, that's kind of the wall in the back. And then the projecting bays are the lighter brick. So it's kind of like the idea of popping the lighter things out and giving it a nice background with the dark.
It's a nice panel. Martin, did you bring shrubs?
Only for the construction drawing. I'm counting on you knowing the code.
Right where you want it. Oh, these are the presentation.
It's got a black frame around it.
Okay. It's gonna have that.
Yeah, it's okay.
Cool, if I can get rid of some.
We're gonna have a black frame around it because I want to scroll in, and I want to zoom in and zoom out a little bit.
Are you gonna re-pour the sidewalks on North Fort Thomas Avenue?
What was that?
Are you gonna re-pour the sidewalk, the existing sidewalks?
Yeah, all the street trees don't line up correctly, so those will all be,
So you'll salvage the brick and re-pour the sidewalks and put the brick back in?
right.
Just thinking in how to get those grades to, for entrances into the stores.
Yeah, that does give you a little more room to work with. Yeah.
You can now make that work to your advantage.
All right, I'm Martin Kepke, with the landscape architect with Martin Kepke Design and 3804 Settle Road, Cincinnati, Ohio. So this is the site plan. I've got, I'm going to going to look a little strange with the glasses this way, but so be it. So we're going to start out with this cafe space here. You've seen, I think you've seen the drawings from earlier models or earlier design drawings for the site. But one of the things that we want to do is have some series of walls in here so that you felt safe in this cafe space. And we want these walls as you're walking down. Can everybody see the mouse here? As you're walking down, I wanted to, kind of not just leak the view through into this space, but have a wall and some planting interrupt that. And that will help us with some of these grade changes that we were talking about too, some of these planting areas. But so this cafe space is designed with seat walls that give some safety, provide for some casual seating that's not in a chair, and any kind of pots and stuff, the decorative containers with flowers or anything that the cafe owner wanted to really put out there that would be furnishings for that space.
Would the seat walls match the
Yeah,
base of the building?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
want. Yes, they're gonna pick up on some of the building materials. They're gonna be articulated as if part of the building moved out into the site. You can see here the paving. I've started to look a little bit at what the paving is. This. So we have the back entrance and the front entrance. We're looking at this paving and that walk kind of leading you through the building. And then, either this, and we're talking about a lot of different materials, but we'll just call this material A and material B. But material A would show up again, kind of just running through as a reminder of the space. And it just, in my mind, it always feels like this, where the most important entrances are, that should be the most important material or the best material. So that's what we're kind of shooting for, is here, here, and here. And the rest of it has pieces of the materials showing up in the brick or other paving, including here. If we were going to do a set of steps, might do it here and let this be a railing so that this can have a table in it. You don't have traffic through the space in every direction, because this is covered. It might be nice to have at least one table that's covered. Then we have the retail space here. I'm really thinking the building is so nice that it really just needs a frame, and the signage works really well. And so I think if we keep the landscape pretty simple through here, we're not going to have a lot of eye candy. Just taking our eyes away from what the merchants would love is for us to look at their signs. However, though, I do think we want some seasonal interest, maybe hanging baskets from the columns, maybe changing the direction here, flanking the columns right here. So real simple. We're adding street trees. The trees right now, I think, are on property, right? Is that right? Yeah. The trees you have now are on this side of the sidewalk. We're going to move them into the streetscape. This streetscape, you already have kind of an established palette of plant materials in your streetscape, and these areas would be intended to kind of complement or be complementary to what you already started as a community.
Can I ask a question, Mark?
Sure. Well, yeah,
Or
sure.
you wait till the end?
I
can wait till the end.
Well, if you can remember it.
All right.
All right. I'll try to go quick. So moving down Highland here, the planting here is really to the sidewalk, residential in scale, plus trying to reinforce the architecture of the building, the gable ends as best we can, where we can. And that's really, that kind of comes around this side of the building too. Just general, good residential scale landscape that's interesting to look at when you're walking around the building as a pedestrian, without really getting too busy again. Some of these would be columnar in nature that would frame these gables that stick out. Here we've got a little bit of an issue because it's a little tough to, we might still be able to do something here, but I think we've got to treat this gable a little differently. Some of the grade changes here, it might be that we, a lot of this is preliminary thinking, but the idea is that as we slope down this Highland Avenue, the foundation of the building starts to creep out of the ground, and maybe there's large plant materials that start to scale some of that base down a bit. Again, some flanking materials here that would be columnar in nature. Moving around the corner, we go to Woodlawn. Now, Woodlawn is, you know, a residential street, and it's got a sidewalk, and it's got, you know, the double strip of grass, and it's got, oops, it's been crazy here. It's got the grass on both sides of the sidewalk. So I'm thinking we try to continue that right through, all the way to the end of Highland here, just because as you turn the corner, I think it should look like the residential street it is. So we're pulling the landscape back a little bit. We've got room to do that, and we want to do that because when you're pulling out of the garage, we want to maintain sight lines from this. As the car pulls out, we want to make sure they can see. So it benefits both. It's aesthetically the solution for the landscape to address the residential neighborhood beyond, and it helps with our sight lines. Moving further on, we've got this green space then becomes a transition between some of the more single-family units that are up the street. And then so this lawn on this side would just spill into this hillside, which we've planted in a way that creates kind of an obstruction for kind of cut through. We really don't want people, you know, walking through here for a lot of reasons, but we put enough obstacles in there. It's a steep enough slope that I think we've addressed that adequately. But back to the lawn and this expanding lawn that comes up the hill is just a transition between the scale of this building and the scale of the residential. And we've also put some larger evergreen trees here too to try to address that very issue. The rear entrance next. So here's the rear entrance. Zoom out a little bit. We've got a drop-off area here. That's for guests to use and for delivery people to use, and it just is a way to make this whole rear entrance a little bit more aesthetically pleasing and upscale enough for condominium sales, really. And also we have enough room for traffic to come through here, so it's never interrupted. We've got plenty of room for even 2 cars to stack in here if they wanted to. And then the sidewalk picks up and goes into the building. There's the fire escape comes out of here. This would be a hedge that is probably not going to be grass as shown here, but more of a substantial hedge, because this unit, we want to make sure that this unit feels a little bit like his yard is this way and not that way, you know, to the parking lot. So he'll have some access into here. And basically we'll be policing anybody trying to come up the hill. So, and then we have, you know, landscaping, you know, that's associated with this entrance where we can, you know, because we're trying hard to get as much parking back here as possible for merchants and guests and everybody else. Using the same basket with hanging basket. We've done this before. We get irrigation to it. It's the woman we use for this stuff is very good at what she does and very clever about it. So we're very confident we can get that to look great. Where it's open above, we're putting planting because now these aren't storefronts. We don't really need to be seeing through or even trying to attract traffic through there. We want to get this to be a little less than that. But where we can't put planting, the hanging baskets will be. We're expecting everybody to kind of go this way with trash into the parking lot out to the dumpster area. And while we were talking there, the other thing, so here's this trash enclosure that Sari had mentioned. And we're getting evergreen trees around it and so forth, but we're hoping that in this first phase, because is this the Hardy board?
Yeah.
Okay. And it is that we can, have our doors on this side of the trash enclosure while they're just using the little
Smaller totes.
so it's the totes. And then when a restaurateur comes in, then we may have to go to doors over here so that we can get a dumpster in that would be accessible to a truck. The last thing is I want to talk about is the buffer area here. And basically, the grading under here has changed. Right now, basically, this is basically what we have. The parking lot has been lowered substantially, so we've got an uphill grade from the parking lot to here, and it goes back down to the properties here. So we've got a natural a ridge really right in here, and I think what we need to do is just create what I'm calling the green wall. And that green, and here's the existing right-of-way. So all the planting that's in this area, these backyards really aren't going to change much because we're not grading into this area. But we do want to put the green wall to deter, noise, headlights, and I'm proposing to use a plant that Chris, you may know it, I'm sure you do, a green giant arborvitae or something like that that deer aren't going to eat. We plant them tight enough that it creates a pretty dense green wall quickly. It's a fast-growing plant, and it allows for us to have more of a lawn and kind of a landscape treatment here that we know that the merchants, the people who are using this space will enjoy just visually, and and condominiums looking down on the space will also find something interesting to terminate that view. Same thing here, some larger evergreens on the ends just to kind of frame it all. I think I did everything.
Yeah.
This little cut through here. This is phase 2, the dash line. That's the bank right now in the gray. So we've designed it to accommodate either direction as development allows. I think that's pretty much it.
Yep.
Now we'll take one question.
Oh, that's right. Someone's going to go to the sign.
Oh, okay. But let's just take.
Yeah. Take the question.
This is retail here.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think if you have a tenant back here,
It's not going to be a separate tenant. It's part of that one piece.
This is all one.
I know
detail.
that's what you hope, but
Oh.
you never know.
That's true, we don't know yet.
What's the question then?
Well, the question is, with these being permanent barriers, you've really made it difficult to get to these front doors. Even this in here, it's really tight.
Well,
I just, I don't know, I'm just feeling like you're creating some barriers that are permanent. Maybe if you
I
have
probably shouldn't have shown the
someone
tables.
who wants
I
a
took a stab
table.
at tables. The tables could be like that one table that's right there by the column. If that went away, it wouldn't look so tight.
Yeah, we
It's-
actually peel these back.
It's the walls that are the barriers.
That we
I mean, if you needed to protect tables up the road, I would say,
for these things.
yeah, that would make sense.
But they're 18 inches high, so they're low, and I think they give you kind of a sense of just feeling more cozy. But I think it's
I know
totally
there's still
accessible.
barriers from a retailer standpoint.
Well, it's
We need to
a.
argue with you. I was a retail developer and
I think what we found is that these kinds of amenities help us sell retail space. I guess is what we're thinking.
I think Lori got a good point about this space over here. We don't know what is gonna go in this whole thing yet. But right here, if we can get the grade worked out so there's some steps that go directly from the street into this space here, that'd be really helpful. So you can have people signing out here and then.
Okay, so the grade is not really changeable because there's a
So it
street,
might need some
but we
steps.
can put the steps this way. Like in the, yeah.
If we can get them to the left of the tower, that way the tower space can stay intact for people out
you
underneath
still
it.
might have
So, yeah, I think that's
you have
something.
to plan for worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we got some thinking to do there. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, it kind of goes to a question I had, which was, what is the distance?
Well,
That opening.
it's got to be 4 feet or more.
Yeah, and it probably is, the columns are 3'4", so that looks to me like
A little
4.
narrow.
That's probably like 5.
Yeah, maybe those open up a little bit,
Yeah.
maybe they're a little bit tighter radius. And I think too, just the way the paving kind of works in here is a little awkward. Maybe
Yeah.
the sidewalk paving comes to that and then drops down, comes to that and drops down, and it's.
It could do that. I was hoping that,
Yeah.
what I was hoping is that there was enough of the patio space to be on the other side of the walls that draws you in rather than, that gives you a hint of what's on the inside. Because you've got the brick border. This is your pavement pattern has this brick border, and I agree, there's some thinking to do here. There's a brick border that happens on either side of the concrete that needs to be addressed. We got to figure out
Ending
how.
up with really
I don't know,
narrow
it's
slivers.
weak right now, so we do have to think about how all those pavements come together. And it might be that we just do what you suggested.
Yeah, I think it's okay to have a distinction between the sidewalk and the terrace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would look, in fact, it would look more like gateway sidewalk.
Right.
Yeah, and might actually suck you in.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Any other questions?
So work your way around to the lawn that comes up the hill.
Oh, yeah.
I like the idea, and I appreciate the effort that you're going to relate to the neighborhood there. I just wonder, particularly as you move up the hill in this area, if one or two of these might be better off being evergreens as opposed to shade trees, and just provide a little bit more privacy.
I just didn't want to fill the space up with a plant, you know? Yeah, because once you put that evergreen branching down to the ground, you kick.
Maybe they're white pine or something that are
Yeah, they limit up, I suppose, or.
Yeah, just felt like maybe a little bit more privacy, and that would help discourage people from walking.
You don't think that the evergreens up here would do that?
They would blend in well with that, that's what I was thinking.
I mean, for the privacy, it's like that's not
Maybe
enough.
this one.
Yeah.
But
I'll take it under advisement, Chris.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Because you would have a pretty open sight line there. I mean, even though there's a grade change.
yeah, I think that, I was hoping that, let me make a point here. I was hoping that between this plant, this evergreen here, and that mass, and I don't really know what the exact distance is, but if that's 18 feet or so, it's not a lot of space. It's only like, it's just not a lot of space. And I didn't want to just fill it up, just the green space, just to put a big blob in it, That was my,
But you
I
also
wanted
want
to
to see the
more
parking lot.
canopy and,
Or lights, from the residents.
yeah, just so when he's in that space, he's not just looking into the face of an evergreen,
Yeah.
But this, I already commented on this, Chris, already, these grasses here
Yeah.
aren't acceptable to me, because this is, again, it's not.
Right.
We could put a hedge in here.
More of an evergreen hedge.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's gonna be
That's
evergreen.
That goes the whole distance, so you don't worry about lights bleeding into the neighborhood, because it would always hit this hedge that would run the whole length of this thing.
Yeah.
Oh, your concern was the lights going through? Oh, yeah, I think we could.
Because I like spatially that it doesn't go all the way, because it's like, it's way more interesting to see
It
this
is.
kind of space bleed in here rather than have this wall and
Yeah, I
then
think
the wall here.
you would still get that.
Yeah, I think so, if you don't go, all right.
We'll.
Yeah, I would consider one more evergreen in there instead of this.
Yeah,
All right.
And the other comment is really.
I might move it back further, just to give it a little more room.
I think that would be fine.
Yeah.
The other thing that stood out to me was the trash enclosure.
yeah,
I know that's moved around sometimes, and
yeah,
I think where we left off, it was going to be masonry enclosure.
yeah, we talked about that,
And now it's all hardy board.
yeah.
I
I was kind of, like, the thinking with that is to keep it light, keep it dark, make it blend in, rather than have it something that stands out. Like, I was thinking if it's like this guy, basically something with a trim detail. So that's kind of why we started going that way, and also just kind of the lightness and the idea that you could modify it easily so that you would get this door on the side. We really do want to start so that you're not looking at the doors when you come in, but that you would have the door on the side. And then when the needs get bigger, then we put the doors in front. But that was the thinking.
And it might be that when the dumpster goes in, we may have to have something more substantial.
Well, and that's where I was wondering, we kind of went from one extreme to the
Yeah.
other.
But these
I'm
cartons.
wondering what
the
middle
little
ground there might be with some columns or a base or something that, and again, maybe it's the gray stone because
Yeah.
it does want to disappear.
Yeah,
But I think going from one extreme to the other is
okay.
kind of, it feels cheap.
A little more something there.
We were
Yeah.
just, the hardware came up because we really wanted to have doors to the south.
Sure.
I want flexibility.
The flexibility
To
there.
knock things out.
Masonry just didn't offer that.
Sure. So maybe columns or something on the corners or, a base. Yes.
Give it a little detail, but also I agree that.
Well, it
color
still
or
needs to be
darker.
designed, and she's really good at this stuff, so
Yeah.
I think she'll come up with something.
I mean, I jumped right in the comments, but I appreciate the fact that you've been very responsive to all the issues that
Yeah, I think
Right.
that was good comments.
we have.
Should we move on to the
Yeah,
signage
signage,
packet?
yeah, sure.
I'll just kind of want to quickly walk us through it so we don't have to spend all night here. Let's see.
Let me ask you, Ben, before we move on, does anyone else have any questions on the landscaping?
So here's kind of a plan that shows the idea of where the signage will go. So we're looking to put building identifiers here at the corner on the Fort Thomas Avenue side and on Highland side, and we'll have an illustration of that. There's little medallion signs on the piers here that identify the building. Same thing back here, and then we'll do a hanging sign here between the two piers also, kind of thing, on Highland. The red lines are these suspended signs that are for the commercial space users that identify their business, and they will be fairly uniform. We'll have colors, we'll have size, everything kind of defined. They can use their own font. Exception is this guy in the corner where you can't have those hanging signs, so we have a little solution for this corner. Then we have blade signs that we placed inside the walk here of these little piers. And we've followed all the guidelines you have. We've got the pages have now kind of clipped into them a little excerpt of the guideline. And then the yellow is on the storefront. So there's guidelines to how much transparency, where the sign goes and all that. And finally, there's the sign that kind of guides people to the parking lot over here. And there's distances that the guidelines require to be 5 feet in and all that. So that's how it's situated. So, oops. Jumps ahead. So here's the building sign on the corner. So we are thinking of placing these metal letters on standoffs like that and backlit slightly so that there's one Highland on this side and one Highland on that side, which is shown like here. So that's how you find the building, or then you have the address here at the main entrance on both sides.
And those say residences at One Highland, those columns, so that identifies the entrance to the residential.
On one side?
On the columns, yeah, so
Okay.
the location, the destination is One Highland, and the condos are residences at One Highland, and those would be on those columns.
And similarly, in the back of the building, we have one Highland here, and then we have a hanging sign below the opening there. And these are all, we're thinking kind of like a dark bronze type finish, oil rub bronze. These are the tenant signs that are on the outside face of the building. So on kind of between the pedestrians, if they're in the covered walk, between the pedestrian and the public sidewalk. And so they will be these 18-inch tall signs, and they will be on little standoffs, so they kind of like float in the space. We'll give them a color, white, and then they can put their own font in there to identify themselves.
So as you look at the scale of these, are you looking at the square footage requirements and zoning?
Yeah.
Very specific?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we have here a little excerpt of
Okay.
things that are here. So Chelsea's been working these in our office, and she's the kind of the graphic design and experiential design expert. So she's been going through these guidelines and been explaining that.
Usually Kevin handles the square footage
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah.
So he'll do that again, but.
That's good, and he will have a chance, because in that 50% CD submission, the signage will be at its final stage, and landscaping will be at its final stage. And really, the architecture too, we're just gonna wrap things up to make them permit drawings. So it's gonna be kind of one last time. This is kind of like the first stab at the concept here. So we'll finalize the drawings to be exactly what they need to be. This is the corner tenant, so there's two solutions. You could either have a corner sign on both sides, which is a little bit smaller, that's 12 inches tall, or it's to keep with the 18-inch height, and then you only get that on the park walk side, not on Fort Thomas Avenue side. And these are the tenant signs that are in the walk, in the covered walk, so there's also, you have a guideline of how far up they need to be and all that kind of stuff. So we're following that, but they're about 24 by 24, I think was about the size. But I think it's a nice kind of touch, gives identity to these businesses when you're on that walk. And so the hanging signs are on the left here when you're walking in this space. And then there's gonna be guidelines for where the signage goes on the storefront. And if there's something that covers the entire window like that, that will have to have transparency X%. So it's not like it can be solid. If you do a solid thing, it has to have a pretty limited field. So this is kind of what we're starting to work with. And finally, the back door, or actually I think there's one more, but the back door has kind of an identity of the business, but this is back of house and then entrance from the back. And then there's the parking sign that is off Fort Thomas Avenue, so it's gonna be a little tall item that has the key and direction. And lastly, Rick, if you want to talk about the identity, we have a logo design that's here.
So there's a couple of themes going on here. The idea of one, the center of Fort Thomas. You're at Highland and North Fort Thomas Avenue. It's number one. It's the center. The other image in here is this whole town's built on a ridge. So we try to pick up that imagery with those ridge lines that you see in the one. And the color palette, which has a couple versions, we're trying to bring up this verdant green because you're a city within a park, and Kelly's got a couple of variations of color palettes that we'll pick up on a green palette. So we're excited to call the condo property and marketing of that residences at One Highland, and we'll do that in digital, print, etc. marketing. But this destination, the commercial place, the residential place, the place where you live, work, shop, and gather is One Highland. So it worked for us on both applications.
The color representation between the two projections, there's two different monitors, is pretty drastically different. And maybe it's not really portraying it very well either, but I'm curious, from where, having looked at this before, which do you think is more like what you think it is?
I get you the exact.
I'm just curious, because that.
I don't think the color palette is there yet.
It's not that. It's not that.
It's not
Yeah.
bad.
I was just curious, because that's much more bright.
It's
This
almost
is a little
like-
more.
Yeah.
No, that's not where
Yeah, it's
Natural.
very different.
I don't know where that came from actually, but anyway, it's a
Color rendition.
it's almost an emerald green and then a blue gray background.
Okay.
But I can send you the digital file.
Yeah, if we could,
It's more blue than that. That's pretty great.
if we could see samples, that would be great.
Yeah.
That's a strong signage package, though. It's
Yeah.
well thought through.
Yeah.
I like the name also.
Good. I was hoping you would. We got everybody involved in the thing. It was like designing, camel by committee. Finally, Google Earth, I was playing around with this address pool. Like, oh, it's right on the corner there. You got three where Brad used to be, and one was not being used anyway, so post office said it was available.
That's it, I think, right? We're done?
Yep.
Presentation?
That's it. Concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Kevin gave us a memo with some comments regarding the signage. I don't know if everyone's had a chance to review it, but take a minute to kind of glance through it.
I think it would be good to pass this along to them. Don't you think so? It's just, you'll see the lens through which Kevin looks, which very detailed and
Good signage.
fiber rules,
Can
right?
you send this to
A
them?
little bit about.
Yeah, I think that would be great if we get, do you have these comments already, or, no? Yes.
Yeah.
If you can send them digitally too, that'd be great. If they're digitally
Julie, can you
available.
send that to?
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's just adding a little precision,
Sure.
nothing drastic. He goes on and on about the landscape though.
Oh,
No, I'm just kidding.
great. I love it.
Are the exterior retail signs illuminated?
Yeah, the next step for us is to getting a lighting designer to get two things done for us. One is the plan for the lighting in the parking lot, so we can see how it illuminates the ground, not the neighborhood, what kind of coverage it gets, how do we address the trees in the lot with the lighting. And then the second is how do we illuminate the signs, and as well as some of the architectural features of the building. So it's not homerama, but it's a very subtle, you know, tower lighting that makes this subtle statement, and maybe some other places that we want to light up. But again, it's hard to demonstrate these things. I mean, you have to be in the field and put the lights on there and then mess around with the intensity. But what we'll do in the next presentation, we'll have the actual study done for the parking lot. You can get, what's that called? What's it called, the study?
Photometric?
Yeah, we get the photometric study done. But on the building lighting, we're just going to suggest where we would do it, and then later on, we'll have you out there and we'll mess around with it in the field when the time comes.
The lighting consultant that we use actually spends a day putting lights out, and then at night, the lights, and then we get to play with it a bit.
To make sure it's
Finesse it.
not too garish and complicated as well.
I just meant for the retailers, individual stores, things on the outside.
Yeah, tell me,
Gooseneck light or, what's.
what, in your experience, Laurie, because you do a lot of retail, what, do you think illuminating a sign internally or putting lights on it from above, what's
Well, from my past experience, or what I did, which was much more commercial than this, first choice would be individual internally illuminated letters. Second, which might be more applicable here, is a box sign with an aluminum face with routed out letters, so that upon illumination, only the letters would light up. So architecturally, it would kind of slide into the building a little bit more and look like it's a part of it. So you would still only see the letters, but it's a little more it's a lot more cost effective.
Do you think there's an option of doing these signs kind of like solid and just lighting them from above, like with an LED strip or something like that? Like just the hanging signs. I see the internally, like behind the, yeah.
You could, definitely. It's not like we need to draw people from a street that's hundreds and hundreds of feet away.
Right.
So I think that would be great. I would just
Another option.
emphasize, try to keep that lighting more. Every time you hear
Yeah.
LED, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh.
Oh, there's so
lights.
many color temperatures and color rendition and all that stuff, but it's like, obviously, we don't want anything cold on this building.
Yeah,
I think if anything, it's kind of warmer than your standard, so we want
Warm and
2,500 or something, yeah. Yeah.
And going
And
back
that
to
would
the,
be great because it would be hidden.
Yeah, yeah,
It would do the
exactly.
job and
Yeah, the idea is like it's hidden, and if it's like something that's a box that has the routed out letters, that's still kind of pretty subtle in a way. It doesn't glow crazy, so I think any of those kinds of things, I think, would work here.
But what you suggested sounds really pretty nice.
Okay.
one, for your building lighting, since you have that model in Revit, right?
Yeah.
You can bring that model into Lumion, and Lumion can do lighting effects. So study that. I mean, it's pretty easy, actually. So you could do some nighttime renderings in Lumion.
What's it called?
Lumion, Lumion.
Good idea.
That way you can at least strategically figure out where you want the lights.
Yeah.
That would be
like a starting point.
It's a starting point.
Yeah, be able to provide power to those places, and then you can play with the
That
finals.
would help the lighting guy a lot.
Right. Would help us approve the concept too.
Okay, I'm going through Kevin's notes. I'm sure you haven't had a chance to read them, but one that jumps out is that he's clearly responded to is the parking sign that has a maximum 5-foot height with 6 square foot maximum signage area, and you're at 70 inches and then 11 square feet.
Okay, I'll have to change that.
It appears that the,
Is there like no, is there no exception to these things? Because it's like, I think what that sign is, your signage standard wants a short and squat sign, and I'm feeling like, what's the reasoning behind it? If it were tall and slim, you know? I think the height is probably there to limit the overall size of the sign. I'm just like wondering if, like, that to me looks elegant, like as proportions. But if you are insisting on the 5 foot height, then we'll just go with it. I'm just kind of wondering
Well, the
how
only thing
solid
that-
is that?
Could make some sense with what you're saying is, now if I see where it is on the site plan. Is it over here?
Yeah, like if you look on the screen there, it's got,
The
it's
blue-
that
the blue
blue
square.
there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well,
right there.
You know, you had that grade issue over here, so it
Yeah.
might make a little sense to
Have it taller.
a little higher, so.
I would just say draw it per the rules,
Yeah,
put it next to this one,
yeah,
you put it in the model,
yeah.
and then we can make an informed decision.
Okay, so you want to see options. Okay.
If you make a compelling case that the tall is needed, then
Right. It just seems to me like there's a reason why we went for all that.
Yeah, the other reason that comes to mind for wanting to be a little taller is that when you're looking for parking, you may want to be, you know, if you're looking over tops of other cars, the signs behind other cars, it's so short that you can't see it, you know?
that's the nice thing about having a model, you can take snapshots from it and
Yeah.
Yeah, especially
make your case.
There are parked cars, right there's a car right in that illustration there. So if there are parked cars on the street, which there are, having a sign high, that's the sun feature right there.
Yeah.
You're gonna see it.
Well, we'll draw
We
comparison.
will draw.
Yeah.
No, it definitely needs to function properly.
Yeah.
I think on the hanging signs on the exterior, it appears without, you know, cross-checking dimensions and knowing what the lineal footage of that tenant actually is. Overall, it seems like it's okay, but adjustments might need to be made on, I know you're gonna try to keep those so they fit inside those building units, but it might mean that one tenant, their length can only be 80% of that sign, the next guy might be 75%.
Yeah, it's probably like, maybe we'll go for everyone a shorter sign then. I think we decided that the distance from the pier to the sign is the critical one. Rather than having like standard sized signs in irregular openings, I think it would look a little crazy. I think it looks better if the signs respond to the opening size and the gap between the sign and the pier is the same. So if we have some situation where our sign is too big, then I think we are gonna make them all smaller and get that gap to work.
And Kevin will look at each one individually, and
Yeah.
then he'll look at the collective,
Right,
because there's
yeah.
both requirements. that
Yeah.
will be met.
So we'll clearly have to do a little more math on this, but just kind of make sure that
And
it's
he's
there.
willing to answer questions about that too.
Yeah, and I think next time I'll bring Chelsea with me, the actual person who's done this stuff, so kind of talked about it, that I can do the preliminary here.
Do you have enough signs for the maximum amount of retailers you can have in there?
I believe so.
Yeah, there's a sign for every bay.
And then
if
every
we wind
door.
up subdividing the spaces, someone wants to be in the back and they want 600 feet, then we put their signage in the back, because they'd be a destination barber shop or whatever.
If we could modify
No,
those back
they would not
openings
have any
into full
frontage.
storefront.
So they would not be allowed to have any frontage.
No, we have a directory, and maybe on the directory of the Galleria and these.
That would be inside those doors.
But, you know, we're trying to sell these back front bays, and they line up pretty well, so there's enough signs on the front for each of those bays.
Will these requirements be built into the condo documents?
Yes. For the sake of all the owners,
All right.
so will be types of businesses. And we probably will probably give a little bit on these signs. I think a merchant's gonna say, hey, I wanna use my own color and typography. And thinking everybody's gonna use brown and white is pretty unrealistic. I think having a size sign that we all agree to, and everybody has to conform to that size, and the height of the letters within that sign. But if I only use blue and, you know, my little logo, I think we're gonna have to get a little flex from you
But
all.
everyone will have the same color background.
Yeah, but I think that would be good, but I think the type and the logo should be that merchant's color.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
I agree
we're
with that.
accustomed to some variation in that. Usually we like to review those though, so it's not something.
But I think architecturally, if you have it tied down on your end, that base color is consistent,
Yeah.
That helps a
that's
lot.
really important.
But if we put this in our guidelines and hand it to a tenant before they sign a lease, then is there going to come in here every time we put a sign up, or can the blanket approval of the system suffice for people that have signed the lease?
I think they'll have to come back.
Yeah, typically when there's variation, they would come back.
Well, if they follow the guidelines, but they have to come back if they follow the guidelines.
If the guidelines includes a color palette.
So if we got the size of the sign approved with a standard background color, and then just told the merchant you can use your color and your logo on that space, and it has to be this high, why would they have to come back to show it to you if it's all, if it conforms to the guidelines you approved?
Typically the colors are one of the really critical things because
You're in the design review, or whatever the design review board district, whatever.
you see some really crazy color
Okay, all right, so then come back to the color and the typography, even though we told them to use their logo.
And
It
sometimes
would
it's
certainly
just,
seem like it would be pretty darn smooth sailing with what has been agreed upon.
right, agreed, right.
Yeah.
And some of them might even be able to be staff approved.
Exactly,
Approved,
staff
yeah.
approved if we tie down, you know, criteria, you submit the final.
And it would be really the merchants that were coming to you.
It would be.
Right?
Right,
Yeah.
yeah,
The development company isn't
right,
the merchant.
that's right.
But it was kind of like the first sign we had tonight, that was just a redo of an existing sign.
Right. Wasn't the building owner, it was the tenant. Yeah. Exciting progress though. So the demo's starting to happen soon?
Yeah, so Habitat for Humanity is in there for the next 2 weeks, trying to recover as many materials as they can. And then the first 2 weeks in November, we'll do demolition. And then there's going to be a pause until we get our bids in on the DDs. We just got the DDs this week, and we want to put this out to bid and make sure everything's coming together the way we hope. And then we'll announce a groundbreaking date later.
Very good. Is there any clarification on anything we've said tonight that you need?
I think you're expecting to see some details on lighting when we come back, some more refinement of our sign program, so it conforms to some of the comments that Kevin has pointed out. We're going to tinker around with the landscaping at the drop-off area to address some of Chris's concerns, and we're going to probably put the hardscape out to bid and know what alternatives we can afford, rather than promise you slate. I'd rather find out how much each of these things cost before we come back into a hardscape plan. So
And we're gonna make some of those minor adjustments on the cafe space and
The
the
seawalls there.
seat walls and study the entering sequences to those spaces.
and steps off of Highland,
Yeah.
we got enough distance to put a couple steps so we get right directly into that space.
Right. Steps and railings. So that, all that will show up in the 50% CDs that we'll
Yeah,
see.
we
Yeah.
should be real close.
I would think that would,
Yeah.
response to everything.
Hardscape
you
for
said.
sure.
Yeah.
All right, anyone else? Okay, well,
Thank
thank you
you.
very much.
Yeah,
thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
it, it
you.
looks great. All right, do we, any other business anyone would like to bring up? Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
To adjourn?
Second, first?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.